Hi, how you doing? I'm Mrs. Pizza. Welcome back to another pizza party. Winnie is down there where she always is. Don't worry, you'll get a good view of her later. And Cheese is right in the cheese spot. Right in there where she always is. Living the best cheese life that you ever could cheese, please. We are here to start another vlog. Why? Because I can. Because I can. That is what I am able to do. I am trying my best to just mood read my life away, because when I am forcing myself to pick up things because I think I should want to read them, pardon you, that was a big huff. When I pick up things because I think I should want to read them, it never works out. If I pick up something because I feel like reading it, I will fly through that bad boy. Like, it is nonsense how fast I can read when I'm just in the mood for something. But we just went to the library today and I picked up some books and I thought, why not do a little bit of a little reading from the library, you know? Hold on, let me get them. I know, so exciting. Come back with me, come back with me. If you ever felt like, I wish someone would just follow me around the house constantly, like I'm the most important thing in the world, get a dog. Get two. It's like a parade everywhere I go. All right, library books. Today I picked up The Antidote, which I remember being interested in when I first heard about it. Although I have not read from this author before, they seem like someone I would like. You know, their vibe matches my vibe. Did that make me sound incredibly old? Because it made me feel incredibly old to say it. This is fantastical, historical, supernatural, and miraculously faithful to the legacy of a nation's ineradicable. I think I just forgot how to speak English or read. I don't know what that was. Past. This story is bookended by two real weather events that happen within months of each other in western Nebraska. The Black Sunday dust storm of 1935 and the flooding of the Republican River, which received 24 inches of rain within 24 hours. But we follow this cast of characters. I think there's a little bit of supernatural element to this. They are living in what is historically a horrible time to be in Nebraska, and they are there. They are there right then. As someone that does not live in the middle of the United States, Nebraska to me feels like a place that just is like endlessly flat, full of wheat and corn, maybe sunflowers, you know? I don't know. A cast of fictional characters living between these two actual historical events. And I also picked up The Dream Hotel, which this is a sci-fi story. It felt a little Black Mirror when I was reading the description. There's a government agency similar to Minority Report, which will come and arrest you prior to an actual crime being committed. They know you're going to do something bad. She is arrested on suspicion that she would have killed her husband, which she cannot even imagine harming this person. She loves him so much, and she gets taken to a retention center where she's told she will only stay a month, and a month lasts a lot longer than 31 days because she is then stuck there. There is then like an uprising of these people all stuck in the Dream Hotel. Those are the books I picked up at the library today. I also have some audiobooks coming through the library, hopefully soon. I'm going to pick these up. I'm going to see if I feel like continuing on, and we'll see what happens. Welcome to yet another beautiful day inside of Satan's butt crack. Moist and hot. Just moist and hot outside. We have gotten a decent amount of the way into The Antidote, so let's chit chat about it. The Antidote is actually a character. Let's back up and start off where the prologue starts off, in an absolutely brutal scene that I was not expecting and kind of hurt my feelings. Not gonna lie, kind of hurt my feelings. This is a book of magical realism, but it is taking place during actual historical events. And every once in a while, when something happens that feels like, well, this must be a made-up thing, there is a photo. I'm not gonna show you the photo of the opening scene because that hurts my feelings and we don't need to see that. But if a particularly horrible place is described, person is described, where I can't find the photo of the place right now because I didn't mark it, because why would I mark it? Why would I make life easy for myself? There are actual historical photos. That shit was real. We then move past this event that is the opening that kind of sets the tone for where we are going to be taking place in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska in a small town full of farmers. We open the story with our prairie witch, who is the Antidote. That is how she is referred to. It's kind of like her stage name. It's the name she's chosen for herself in her line of profession. In this world, there are prairie witches, which are women who have had some sort of horrific trauma because honestly, let's be real, there's just trauma everywhere. And they become what they call vaults, which is basically like a safety deposit box for other people's memories. Whether those be good memories or bad memories, you can go and deposit your memories into one of these prairie witches for a price. And then when you want that memory back, if you want that memory back, you can go and get it. The thing that makes this so appealing to so many people is one, you unburden yourself from the memory, but two, the vault, the prairie witch, the person you are unloading this memory into also doesn't know the memory. It just like lives inside of them in a place they can't access. How the witch describes it is, as a safety deposit box knows about its rocks, as a jar of pickling vinegar knows about its floating roots, as an attic knows about its ghosts. These are things that dwell within them, but they are not necessarily something that they can't like call upon this memory themselves. It has to be called back by the person who put it in the vault to begin with. We then have this giant dust storm, this actual historical event that happened called Black Sunday, where through farming practices and just ignorance about the land and the process and the growing economy and the need for more food and more wheat, this land in this area was just overfarmed to the point where the topsoil started eroding, the plants started dying, they weren't getting rain, so there was a drought, and this giant storm shows up, and it is almost like a blackout. These people are living within a storm of dirt and dust, and it sounds apocalyptic, honestly. Imagine every ghost rising up to hurl their cemetery earth at the living. That was the sound we heard last Sunday afternoon. At 3 p.m., the sun was murdered in cold blood, in full view of every woman and child. The sun sank into a black cloud, buried alive at a shocking altitude by the duster to end all dusters. Also, Cheese has decided right now is the perfect time to chew a very loud bone. Right there. Live your best life. This is your house. Chew your bone, girl. That is the opening of this. We meet our prairie witch who has this job of collecting memories. We then meet our character Harp, and he is a farmer in this land who is heavily indebted to the bank. And then we meet Dell, who is his niece, who lives with him, who has lived with him for a few years now after her mother was murdered. Dell is, I think she's like 14, 15 years old, living in this time of extreme poverty and just apocalyptic environmental strife for these people, but also she has this outlet that is basketball for her. She is very into basketball. Her uncle is dealing with his life being upended by taking in of Dell, mourning the sister that he didn't really know that well anymore. We also have the perspective of a scarecrow that jumps in every once in a while too, so there's a little bit more of magical realism there because the scarecrow himself has a POV, but he's more of like awakening to existence. He's like coming into being. He's not having long monologues so much as he's just literally coming into existence. It's beautifully written, absolutely gorgeously written. Everything sucks. What a hard time to be alive. There are so many prejudices that so many people are having to deal with. It's not that it's so regular for them. It's so ordinary to be discriminated against for your race, your gender, your sexual orientation. Like all of these things are just the everyday occurrences of these people living in this time period. Also, there is literally a storm of dirt. So we are now dealing with the aftermath of this giant dirt storm, and I know from the synopsis that we are then working towards another horrific environmental event that will be happening when our witch wakes up during the storm or I think it's like just before or during the storm that is the Black Sunday dust storm. She realizes that her vault is empty, so all of the memories that she's been collecting for years and years from all the people of this town have disappeared, and she doesn't know what happened. We are then trying to figure out what happened. She doesn't want people to know that she's lost all of these memories because they're going to come collect them at some point. We have people fleeing this area, not only because it is incredibly hard to make a living here, but you're literally breathing in dirt all the time. Like people are coughing. Dell and her friends, when they're doing basketball practice, they literally have to cover their faces because they're breathing in dirt. And then we have just little tiny hints of magical things happening during this historical events. I mean, like, that's a decent amount to just like pick up and fly through. I'm having a pretty good time. I'm also learning about historical events that I'm sure I learned at some point, but now we're breathing new life into different things that were occurring at this time in this part of the world, and how some of them are incredibly awful. Some of the just things that these people had to deal with are awful, not only for everyday life, just for the fact that there's a dust storm, but also just like how they treat each other, some of the laws that are in place, how they look down on each other for the most stupid reasons, the history of America and that kind of stuff. But I'm enjoying it so far. I'm liking what I'm reading. Great clap, Winnie. All right. Hi. Hello. How's it going? I finished a book. I blew through this. I mean, I think this is like over 400 pages, right? Yeah, girl. Like just over 400 pages in quite the speedy time. I ended up going for a 3-star as my final star rating on this bad boy. There are parts of this that I really enjoyed. I love a book that is going to teach me about a historical moment that has been lost to time / is just not something I've been educated on. That is something I can truly appreciate. I know the Dust Bowl is a thing. We learn about the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and all of these things in school, but I'm gonna be real honest, it is not something I retained. And so learning about not only Black Sunday, but then this event that happened in pretty quick succession after, where there was this dust storm on Black Sunday, and then a matter of months later, a absolutely giant rainstorm came and flooded the area. So imagine this place that is going through an insufferable drought where no plant life is living, and there is just dust and dirt everywhere, and then there is just a deluge of rain, and how that would just be awful. It would just be awful, because then everything is just mud and you're just sinking in mud. I liked that there was magical realism added to this, because I like a touch of fantasy, I like a touch of magic. In the end, though, although this was beautifully written and I felt like all of the characters made sense, I felt like this went on a little bit too long. Near the end, I started doing some skimming, because it was like, this is how we're going to wrap this up. This is how we're going to plan and execute this plan to have vengeance against our villain character. This is where all of our characters are going to end up. And I was just kind of skimming, because I was like, well, then get there, because I'm getting a little bit tired of waiting for it. That being said, I think the main message of this book, taking a minute to spend some time in these historic environmental things that happened, but also was to take some time and sit in the history of what was going on in this time period. One of the refrains that's repeated a few times is these people saying the greatest evil is the person saying better you than me. A lot of these people turning a blind eye to prejudices. There's a lot of time spent talking about the Native Americans on this land, specifically the Pawnee tribe, but some of the other Native American tribes as well, that were being systematically removed from their land, cast as the villain, constantly just beat down as a people. And these reservation schools, I don't know if that's what they're actually called in this book. I forget the name of what they call them, but basically the schools where they forced Native Americans to put their children in these schools, where they then would cut these children's hair, not allow them to speak the language of their tribe, then educate them in order to make them like laborers and housekeepers. Like, they basically wanted to educate them into becoming a slave labor class for the most part. They were going to be paid absolutely nothing for their services. They were being stripped of their heritage. These families were being forced to send their children there. This was not something they wanted for their children. They were trying to erase these people's culture and heritage. That is happening in the time this book is taking place. We are getting the perspective of many characters, some that have been through situations that are absolutely horrible, some that are people who have benefited from these horrible situations and will willfully ignore the parallels within their own lives to what is going on to these people because better them than me. It's a way that these people do mental gymnastics to say, well, I'm different, I'm better, I'm not like them, even though they're watching these people's lives be absolutely horrifically ripped apart. It's a real feel-good novel. This is reflecting on some of America's history, a period in time that we don't have too much to be proud of, honestly, and the people that were living through these environmental tragedies while other tragedies were taking place. I think this is one of those novels that you can feel like a lot of really smart people are going to tell you, like, you should read. And it was beautifully written. It just went on a little bit too long. It was dragging near the end, but I'm not mad I read it. The next book that actually came through from the library through audiobook was Head Full of Ghosts. I have read, is it Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, and had an okay, decent, good time. Wasn't my favorite book, but I didn't dislike it. I also read a short story that I cannot remember right now, also from this author, but I will put it up on the screen. Again, not a new favorite, but fine. It was just fine. These books were just fine. But everyone touts Head Full of Ghosts as being their favorite from this author, and a really interesting look at the possession story as a horror trope. This is a much, from my understanding, quieter version of the possession story. Not something that's like super bombastic where we're like pea green soup vomit on people, but more there is a lot of doubt cast throughout the story from the perspective of the narrator, and just this could have all been a misunderstanding. Like, is this an actual possession is kind of where I think the majority of the story lies. I don't know much, but since we are reading library books as they come in, why not? Why not read about a possession story? I literally just started it. So all I know is that our main character is the sister of the person that was possessed. She is, I think, in her 20s, and she is coming to do an interview with some reporter about what happened years prior to her sister. And then we will jump back to her account of this horrible tragedy that befell her family in this house where her family no longer resides. They are sitting in the house where all of this happened. It feels very like the beginning of a movie to me, and I'm okay with that. You know, so far so good. Let's keep reading.
Harper Audio presents A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay.
I need to do something about this hair before we go to work. We are currently here because I need to update you on books, but I also need to share something with you. This is Winnie. Winnie, look over here. Look at her. So good. Not many thoughts. Her current fixation is going into the backyard and eating cicadas. It is cicada season. I don't know if you can hear them, but they are deafeningly loud, and they might be one of the ugliest bugs that ever existed. They're big, they're dumb, they fly right at your face, and they're incredibly loud. And apparently quite a tasty treat for our furry friend right here. I think it wasn't last year, but the year before, she ate so many that she inflamed her intestines, because eating sharp bugs, crunchy sharp bugs, is not good for your digestive tract. And so she ended up having to go on a bunch of probiotics and an antibiotic. Look at that face. No thoughts. Not a thought. In order to keep her from literally just go buffet dinner outside. It is a smorgasbord. I will insert the video. If you don't know what a cicada looks like, it must be nice. They're not, at least they don't bite. They don't bite, but they're just everywhere. And it's really gross watching them come out of their little shells. Anyways, do you want to see what Winnie has to wear when she goes outside? Tell me it's not giving Hannibal Lecter. This is just so we don't end up at the doctor's office because someone cannot contain themselves. She doesn't hate it. Her tail is still going. It just looks very sad. Let's let Winnie outside, and then I'll tell you some stuff. Cheese also has to wear one. Cheese, right next to our giant box full of balloon helium. Let's let them outside, and then I'll tell you about books. I'm going to go stand out here. I'm going to stand out here. First of all, it's so humid. All right, I'm back with the worst angle ever. I am 52% of the way into Head Full of Ghosts. So far, I'm really enjoying that. It's very creepy in that something is going on in this family. The older sister, who's 14 years old, is exhibiting these signs of something. Whether there's a lot of talk of whether it's like mental illness. The father of this family, who's recently become religious. He has become religious again in his life. He used to attend church. He is now found church yet again. He seems to think it's some sort of demon. The mother is going the route of this is some sort of medical issue. She's been having the daughter see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and all these doctors. The way this story is told is very interesting because we are getting the story recounted to us from an adult version of our narrator who, at the time this was happening, was 8 years old. So she is very aware that her recounting the story might be colored by the fact that she didn't have all the facts. She was a very young child. She also has stated several times she does not believe that her sister was possessed. She thinks that some sort of mental breakdown was happening before she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It has been alluded to several times that I don't know if her sister is actually going to survive what is happening. The family itself is in a real bad financial situation. The dad hasn't had a job for over a year. They're struggling financially, and they get the opportunity to have a reality television show come in and film them and what's going on with this like possession story that's happening. And so they have a film crew in their house. The things that are happening are creepy enough, but then there's a lot of like embellishment and sensationalization that the TV crew, and even the young daughter when she's recounting the story to the TV crew as a child, she's sensationalizing it, she's embellishing it. And the TV crew is doing that because they want to make the TV show entertaining. You are aware that there are embellishments in the story that people have gotten in the past. Media such as The Exorcist and like exorcism movies and books and what have you exist in this world, and they are also talked about. The influence of these other types of media on what this story, like what actually happened and the story that's being told. But what's happening itself is still messed up. And you're wondering, is this girl mentally ill or is something else going on? Because when scary stuff happens, it's wild. But this isn't like bombastic. It's much more creepy, crawly, slow. And then that builds enough tension that then when something happens, you're like, what the heck? We are learning this after the fact. So you know, like, at least that our narrator character is going to survive this, but you don't know how much how many scary, messed up things are going to happen. But is this actually a possession of some kind, or is this someone suffering from mental illness? So this is a story of a possession that's taking place in like the real world. This is really grounded in reality. I'm having a great time and flying through it. I also picked up my next library book. I'll take it off. Hold on. Yeah, I'm sure it's covered in bugs. Freedom! Come here. I also picked up my next library hold. This is The Dream Hotel. I picked this one up because it said it was very Black Mirror, near future, sci-fi, the escalation of technology, and it had a little bit of Minority Report, the old school Tom Cruise movie in it. I am not far. How many pages am I? I'm about 88 pages in, and we have our main character, Sarah, who lives in a near future world where algorithms have basically taken over. The collection of data of people and these algorithms have been used to create a numerical score for people that is then used to determine whether or not they are at risk to committing a crime. So they collect data from everything, from your social media to your education. There's like a big corporation that bought all the rights to all the education software. So they're going to have access to every grade you've ever made through elementary school, through high school. Our one main character has an implant in their head that's been marketed to help people with insomnia and sleep apnea to sleep. It's been very successful. It's collecting data on your dreams and using that to influence your score as well. So not even your subconscious while you're sleeping is free from the algorithm collecting data. It's very honestly depressing because it's not far off from reality. These algorithms basically deciding if you are at risk for committing a crime based on all of these different data points that they've decided. But also there is a human element in this because the humans then use their prejudices as well to determine who these data points are used against. If you accrue too many data points, like our main character does, you end up going to I'm going to call it a detention center. They use a lot of words for it. It is not called a prison. It's a prison, but they use a lot of different colorful language to get around the fact that it is a prison. And you were initially sent there for 21 days. Most people do not get out in 21 days because a little infraction as small as like not making your bed correctly can add points to your score, days to your sentence. So this woman named Sarah is traveling through an airport when she gets flagged. Her family is originally from Morocco, but she's an American citizen. She has been her entire life. She has dealt with looking like her family does, being the ethnicity that they are, how that has always labeled them as immigrants, how that has always labeled them as other, and they have to be extra careful in a lot of situations to not escalate, they basically have to be extra careful because they are more likely to be profiled, to be singled out, to be othered. So she is in this situation where she is singled out due to the algorithm. There is stuff that happens involving a human element, and then she is sent off to this retention center where she has now been for, I won't ruin it, but she's been for much longer than 21 days, and she's trying her best to get back home. It's very depressing because this is similar to a lot of these kind of books that just have like a slight sci-fi, that very Black Mirror, where it's so close to reality and you can see us as a society slipping into this so easily. Doesn't make you feel good. But so far, I'm interested to see, because we're flashing back and forth from when Sarah is first flagged and pulled aside and interviewed about what's going on to her time now where she's been in the retention center for a while, dealing with other people that are also at this place. It is full of women, and all these women have come here for different reasons, but all of it having to do with their algorithm score being above, I believe it's like 500. There is nuance to things that an algorithm, that an AI cannot comprehend. There's nuance to all of these stories. And when you hear the backstory and you hear more of the circumstances, how that colors what the algorithm can't see. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's really, really fast. And I wanted something a little bit Black Mirror. I'm wondering how that's going to go and if our character Sarah is going to get out of this. It's a prison. It's a prison. Even in everything except name, it's a prison. So I'm having a good time with that. Just the library has been delivering. Okay, we finished a book. So we need to chat about it because that's what we do. That's why we're here. I'm sorry. It's early. What time is it? It's not nearly as early as I thought. It feels much earlier. But my brain has only had one cup of coffee. We're trying our best per usual. I finished Head Full of Ghosts, and I ended up having a decently good time with this. I think it's really interesting, and that Winnie's very thirsty. We should all be hydrating. Have you had water today? There's your reminder. Thank you, Winnie. Story as a whole is the story of this family that is going through this very traumatic time and how they're all dealing with what's happening to them. But also, this is incredibly ambiguous. So you are able to basically take a thread and follow it, whichever thing you decide is true, whether that be that our Marjorie character, our older sister to our narrator, is actually having a psychotic break. She's having some sort of early signs of some severe mental illness, and she is in the throes of falling apart mentally, or if she is possessed by a demon. And there can be arguments made for either side of that. The ending of this story, no matter what stance you take on the demonic possession, is awful. Not awful as in bad, but like awful as in it's kind of a gut punch. You know, with the lead up to this, as tensions are rising, and it's alluded to this in the beginning, that this is not going to end well. Like, we are not going to end with sunshines and rainbows. We are going... Now we have a squeaky toy. We're going to end in some sort of big, bombastic, awful way. If that happens, and it's really quite a gut punch, and then you are left sitting with, you can read this as real, you could read this as supernatural, you could read this as psychological, but overall, a very slow, creeping, sad story of this family that ends up being in a reality TV show. And the reality TV show is about how their daughter is possessed by a demon. But it feels like slowly creeping along, and then you look at a door and some crazy shit is happening, and we're like, we're not going in that door, and you just keep going. Perhaps there is a window, you look outside, crazy shit is happening, we're not going outside, like that kind of thing. That is how I would describe it. Walking down a long hallway and things progressively get more up the farther along you go. So we finished that, and we finished this, and I just got a notification from the library that we have another hold ready. So we're going to walk to the library because thankfully the weather has let up a little bit. We are now under 100 degrees, and I'm going to go walk to the library, drop this off, and pick up our next hold. The dogs are not going to come with me on this walk because dogs are not allowed inside the library. They're going to be real disappointed. Like, real disappointed. I'm sorry in advance. Being in my car right now is not the best choice, honestly. It has been beautiful the past couple of days. We've had 70-degree days, and we all started living in a fairy tale land when we thought that was forever. But I believe there's a bug in here with me. We are here because we finished a book. I ended up giving this, I think, like 3.5 stars. This felt like a decent episode of Black Mirror. It ended in a way that felt realistic to the story we were telling, although it wasn't. It felt a little anticlimactic. It was realistic. We are basically telling a story of people having to deal with being incarcerated, being profiled, the dangers of using algorithms, even though there's nuance in life, kind of lumping these people into probable dangers, even though they have not yet proven to be dangerous. The dystopia of a future world, and the fallout from these people that are being detained. Their lives are upended. The fallout from them being incarcerated and them having to find life after incarceration. And how the system itself is broken, which in real life, the system itself is broken. Overall, quick read. Not a new favorite, but if you're looking for something that feels Black Mirror but isn't gruesome, isn't violent. Well, there's some moments of violence in this, but for the most part, it's pretty tame when it comes to violence. It was okay. It was okay. So far, the library's doing some good stuff for us. And of course, if you saw the clip, you saw that our next book is going to be out on a limb. I've read, I believe, 2 books from this author. It's like Next of Kin and something else that are both in the same series that are following like friends of each other. But I decided to pick this one up. I am going into this knowing that it involves some of my least favorite tropes, but trying to be open-minded. I've heard even if you don't like the surprise pregnancy trope, that this does it somewhat well and has like natural discussions about it, but is also like light and funny. This is the story of, I'm only like a little bit of the way in, but this is the story of Wynn, and she was born with one of her hands is slightly less developed than the other. So she has one hand that's smaller than the other one, or partially smaller than the other one. In the beginning of this book, the author has a note that says this is something that they actually like physically have their own. They have one hand that is smaller than the other and from birth was less developed than the other one. So this is the author writing a character that has the same physical features as them. In the author's note, the author talks about how the one thing that they were really worried about was being a mother, seeing as how you need 5 extra sets of hands, it seems like, to be, in everyone's opinion, a good mother. But this author basically said, like, there's nothing I can't do. With the hands I was born with, there's nothing I can't do. And so she wrote this character who has a very realistic relationship with this slight physical deformity. They are very like empowered. This is part of me. I'm trying to love every part of me, but every once in a while they do have like reservations. Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be judged for this? And Wynn has one hand that is less developed than the other one. She goes to a party, and in order to kind of poke fun and honestly to give you an insight into what Wynn's personality is like, she's dressed as a pirate with a hook because of course she is. And while at this Halloween party that is being thrown by her best friend, she meets Beau, who is a man who has a prosthetic leg, and he's also dressed as a pirate and has wrapped his prosthetic leg in a faux wood so that he has a peg leg. They're both making the same joke, so immediately they have something in common. They absolutely hit it off at this party. There's a lot of chemistry. They have a one-night stand. It's not like a completely drunken blur. Like, this starts off with a scene that is spicy in the very beginning, but also there are realistic conversations happening, realistic things happen, and weeks later, Wynn finds out she's pregnant and then has to decide how she's going to move forward with this. She decides pretty quickly that she's going to keep the pregnancy. She has some realistic thoughts, like inner monologues and conversations with friends about this. And she then tells Beau, and now these two strangers are going to have a child together. And it's been pretty funny so far because they both have their vibe matches. They have a very similar sense of humor, and it's been funny so far. I'm enjoying it. And it's getting hot in this car. So we're going to end this clip because it's hot. It wasn't hot and now it's hot, and I'm upset about it. But I will let you know how this one goes. If only I could pet you 24 hours a day, then I feel like you would truly be satisfied. But if I stop petting, are we going to be okay with that? Okay. Winnie's taken up her position at the window, which she currently cannot see through because the humidity is so intense right now that every single window in my house is frosted and my AC is not turned up that high. It is unbearable outside, and yet I'm about to walk to the library to return some books because I just finished Out on a Limb. This ended up being, I think I gave it like 4.5 stars because I was feeling stingy. It's a 5-star romance. I am not a fan of the pregnancy trope, yet truly enjoyed this. And even though there is a spicy scene out of the gate because these two have a one-night stand that leads them down this path, I would almost consider this a slow burn. This is sweet. This is silly. This is these two people who, for their own reasons, have hang-ups in relationships, and yet they make a go of it together without really trying to pursue a romantic relationship. They are trying to set up to co-parent, yet they are so perfect for each other. They're so lovely. They communicate so well. This did not have the dreaded third act breakup, if you need to know that, because I almost was a little bit apprehensive that we were going to have a third act breakup, when in the third act, we were going to have a whole baby, a whole human. And so I thought, what a horrible time for there to suddenly be drama in this relationship. There's still conflicts. They're learning about each other. It isn't drama for the sake of drama. This is sweet and lovely and heartwarming. And I really had a great time. I had a great time, even though it had one of my least favorite tropes. There's an epilogue, and then in this version, there is another kind of ending scene. So it's almost like two epilogues were created and you get to read both of them. You get to do both time jumps with this couple. It was sweet and lovely, and I enjoyed it. It should be 5 stars, but for some reason I'm a stingy little right now. But that is where we're going to end this vlog. It was the library once again providing for me. I love a mood read. I watch people's videos where they are so good at like planning out their entire life. My brain has issues with that. So when I do this, when I just read whatever book the library or the newest book to show up, I was interested in one point, let's try it. I am incredibly successful. I had a great time doing this, and I think I'm just gonna keep letting the library provide for me. But that, kids, is where we are going to end it. If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. I would love to hear about whatever books you're reading right now, and I'll see you next time.